fairly easy. The other one that we also want to talk about is the settings tab. On the left-hand side, you're going to notice that the settings is the second to last tab there, and that is a menu. Just like on the map page where there's the little gearbox, the gearbox basically indicates that there are settings. So this is where we're going to put in our user preferences. The user preferences, depending on what you guys like, that's usually what a lot of this stuff is. They have different app themes. So I always like the dark mode, but some people like the lighter mode. If you want that white version, we can keep that on for a little bit. And then the light settings and dark settings, the only thing that this thing does is this will basically, do I want to change the chart colors or invert the colors, and when do I want it to actually change, or how do I want that function to actually work, okay? With some of these others, as mentioned, these are kind of more personal preferences in terms of when you're flying along, do you always want north at the top of the map? That's kind of like when you guys set up your GPS. Or do you always want the airplane just to be pointing in, the single direction? So your options obviously are north up, meaning the top of the screen is always going to be north. There is a track up centered, which is where the airplane is. Wherever the airplane nose is pointing is where it will always basically keep you in that same direction. Some people like that feature. I'm not a huge fan of it, but that's just me. There's other ones as well, such as extended center lines, and we'll show you what that is. Your distance rings are always a good one. It will show you track vectors, your profiles, as I mentioned, your current location marker. That is allowing you to basically select what type of airplane you are for your geo-referencing. So I've got mine set as a 747. If you guys want to do a T6 or a B1 or a B52, these are some of the options that you can replace it with as you guys are flying along, which is more of just kind of a fun thing rather than others. Usually what I'll turn on down at the bottom portion here along the sliders is we start off with cockpit sharing. The cockpit sharing is going to allow me to share with other individuals or students inside the airplane or pilots. You can turn your annotations on the map if you want. That basically allows you to put any annotations in your VFR chart and allow them to show up while you're flying. The other ones that I usually like to do are 4-color radar. So if you don't have the 4-color radar on, and we'll show you how that works, then it just basically shows you a little bit more depth in terms of the severity and what is going on your radar screen, rather than just kind of keeping it to a 2 to 3 color range. Okay, I think it adds pink into the color. The internet radar coverage I usually keep on, and then the breadcrumbs, which is basically just as it sounds. When we take off, what will end up happening is that we will have a green line that will follow the airplane. And it will basically provide breadcrumbs of where we've flown. Now, my breadcrumbs are set to disappear after 15 minutes. You can change this all the way up to 4 hours. And what ends up happening is once we are basically, on the ground and, our speed has been diminished to, I believe it's less than 15 knots, then the breadcrumbs will actually start disappearing, okay? Now, some of the other ones that you may have available to you are things like the map annotations in terms of using the Apple Pencil and using the controls. That's what we saw on the map sign. The checklist we will show you as well. And then a lot of people get kind of stuck with this traffic. In the event that you guys are looking at or using for traffic, what would end up happening is that, if you don't have high distant traffic on and you're in a busy area such as Los Angeles, you're going to see every single traffic target out there, everything from the 747 at 40,000 feet to the guy who's half a mile in front of you, okay? If you want to kind of declutter the map and kind of hide some of that distant traffic, then what I would recommend is moving that slider over in the settings menu. For those of you, I know a bunch of people out there are in CAP or any of the search and rescue organizations. It does have search and rescue features. We will not get into those today, but it will allow you to basically do grid searches. And the CAP features actually put certain CAP grids on your actual VFR chart, and also cell grids as well, so that way you can search, I believe it's in 30-minute increments, and there's actually 3 different variations that you can put on there for your search and rescue features, which is kind of nice. The automatic downloads, this is completely up to you. The automatic downloads, if you're connected to Wi-Fi and you have it set up, the automatic downloads will basically allow you to download any updates automatically as you go along. Usually I'll keep that off just in case I'm trying to run out and do something. Okay, we'll talk about packing, and then the next ones are going to be your track log. So with the track log, I usually have it auto start and auto stop. If you don't have that setting on the maps page, we'll show you how to manually do that, but you have to hit the record button in order to get it going. And then at the very bottom here, we've got the different briefing formats. So most people nowadays are going to do the graphical PDF. There's an HTML, and then there's a classic version. So what the briefing format is talking about is actually going to be how your briefings are going to be displayed when you get a weather briefing, and we'll review that as well. Taxi diagrams, if you want them to automatically appear when you're on the ground at an airport, what will end up happening is if you smooth these sliders over, it will automatically pull up a taxi diagram when it senses movement and you're at or on an airport, okay? The rest of them here are basically just basic preferences. So what type of alerts do you want? Some of these are going to be very specific in terms of, do you want to hear these alerts? Now, if anybody here has like a Bose headset or a Bluetooth headset, you can actually pair your iPad with the Bluetooth headset. And some of these alerts will actually be audible as you're either taking the runway or you're hitting 500 feet. Or any of these others, if you have a sync rate or traffic alerts, they'll start to kind of chat to you. Now, it does not interfere with ATC, but it does basically provide some good information and situational awareness for you. And that is Foreflight, the app that's basically sending you that alert, okay? Now, backing out of that menu, we always back out of the menu with the settings button at the very top there in the center of the screen. It's a chevron-like button. If we were to hit that, that will get us back to that primary settings menu. The other ones in here are units and time. So depending on what we're flying or where we are currently located, for some of us outside the United States, these are things that we may or may not want to change. Other things as well is that if we are, potentially want to show different settings, this is where we can change that. Our aircraft speed, for some of us in older airplanes, which is about the third to last one, we may want miles per hour instead of knots, which is probably the most common change that you're going to do on your units and time. Now, if I back out to the main settings menu here, the other thing too is that this is basically providing some additional information as we go along. So this is just kind of the overview, if you will, of what you're going to set up in the settings menu. So the first thing you do is when you download and log into the app, make sure that you downloaded the correct charts. You're going to go through your settings menu on this tab, and you're going to basically select what you want in terms of what your personal preferences are, if you like the light or dark. If you want to auto center, if you want north to always be up, and then